Welcome back to Careers with Missy. I'm so excited to bring another incredible guest. Today we are meeting with Richard Donnelly, who is the founder at Natur Co, a sports and social wellness club. I'm so excited to meet with you today, Richard, for numerous reasons. One, because we have a live audience of aspiring business leaders in the room, and two, because your story is going to resonate with many of our viewers in terms of the non-work related activities that you do that help you balance, that also seem to bring to the wellness that I believe that your founding principles might be. Richard, jumping into who you are passionate about all things innovation and business development. You studied a bachelor's of science in business studies. You did a master's of science in business development and innovation. You're passionate about Gaelic football and self-development, and you're always striving to improve yourself both on and off the field of play. You get excited by the challenges and pressures that help you demonstrate a huge self-belief and initiatives to learn and execute relevant solutions. As I'm reading your bio and I'm remembering what I've learned about the work that you do, my first question that comes to mind, Richard, is were you always this driven and this committed, or did you have a mentor along the way that got you to where you are today?
I think I was always had some sort of determination or ambition within me, but it was generally a large amount of time directed towards the sporting field, which bear good fruit to date. But I think as you mature, you start to challenge that same determination and ambition towards business and creating a career for yourself. So I think sport has taught me a lot in that regard, and that in my early days it was all challenged towards sport, but I think you learn a lot as you go in a team setting, and both individually and to work as part of a team. So I think it's all the principles are applicable in business and in sport. So I think I've just started to channel it towards my professional career now in recent years, and it's starting to bear fruit as well.
And hearing you say that, I've heard speakers in the past tell me similar things. And it's exciting for me to hear that. And I know for a student listening to this right now who is very passionate about sport, I think it is calming in a way to help them understand the transferable skills that being passionate about a sport hobby can bring into the world of business. So let's go back to your younger years. You were definitely always into sport, but when you were a student, where were your academic commitments? Where did you find yourself most interested at school?
It was always in the business side of things. It was quite blasé, but I always would have said that I wanted to own my own business. And at that stage, I had no clue what it was going to be, or what industry or what line of work it was going to take. But with that in mind, I approached university. I wanted to be quite flexible as a result of my further studies. So I went with business studies as a degree to study, which left it that I could be quite flexible. I didn't really go and specialize in one area. So that was my approach in thinking, or I suppose in further my sort of passion that I had for business in general. But at that early age, I didn't really understand, firstly, or I didn't really know what I wanted to specialize in or open a business in. So I kept myself quite flexible, that I could go a number of different routes as I matured, maybe 3 or 4 years later, if that was more clarified in my own head.
So if you can put a number to, or an age to when that clarity started to kick in for you, what number would you put on that?
I think it was about 2021 when I started to think I wanted to open a cafe. Things I enjoyed doing, so like just going for coffee or going for lunch with the lads or hanging out with friends and that. So that was kind of my inspiration for doing it. I didn't know when it was going to happen or if it was going to happen. I actually wanted to leave university halfway through to do that because I seen a gap and an opening, but good old persuasion from my parents to see it through and do it at a later stage when I'm ready. So and that's only coming now. So I suppose everyone's timing is totally different.
So when you were considering jumping into business because there was a gap in the market, and you were probably thinking, why am I sitting in a lecture hall when I should be just jumping into business? Take us through the decision making. So your parents were telling you, just see through your university course. Your professors were teaching you, you were seeing these business ideas, probably reading about entrepreneurs who were just jumping in and being very successful, which I think many young people learn more and more about. How did you decide that your parents were on the right track and that you needed more time?
The decision was probably largely based around my sport. So all things considered, I got good support from the university to further my studies, and I got the incentive of a master's degree as well. So I was probably at that age, I wasn't able to make my own decision. So it was very much all the guidance I was getting was, no, you have to do the traditional thing here and see out your education and make sure you can get a job at the end of it and stuff like that. So I think we're often told I suppose the fears and the failures, as opposed to seeing the opportunities and I suppose being brave with it. But
I'm gonna definitely come back to this question because there's a lot of depth to the response that you have, and if it's okay, I want to kind of go into a little bit about the organization. And I promise you, Richard, we are definitely coming back to this. We're not going to skirt over this because I think there's so much to talk about. Natur & Co is Ireland's first social wellness club. You're based in Omagh. I hope I pronounced that properly. And it's the first of its kind on the island of Ireland. You describe it as a fun and dynamic, interactive space where anyone can come to relax, socialize, and most importantly, improve their health and well-being. So in my mind, I'm almost imagining a physical environment where people do that. How did you come to terms with this vision? How did you bring the vision from your mind into context? Because that's really the essence of an entrepreneur, is being able to take what they see in their minds and making it concrete so that the people around them can see it as well. How did you do that, Richard?
I was quite lucky in a sense. So all of the things are the pillars within the business that include, if you think of wellness, some of the pillars include the social element, connection with other people. Then you have the fitness element, and then infrared sauna, and then you have nutrition pillars as well that contributes to wellness. So they're all things I'm passionate about in my day-to-day life. And I knew if I wanted to open a business, I thought it would be good to tie it in alongside them things I'm passionate about and things that serve me well in my day-to-day life and sporting career as well. So where it gets unique is that I had this vision, I had this concept, I had a brand, but it was, where do I put it, or how do I physically bring it to life in a location? So by pure chance, I was going to use another service in this building, and it was just an ice bath, like a hydrotherapy pool. And I came out of it and walked around the building and just seen a load of empty rooms and empty spaces and an open cafe with natural light and stuff like that. And it just clicked with me one day, a couple of years ago. So it was very much seeing an opportunity and seizing it. But it just kind of proved to me that you do need a bit of luck and good timing to get something off the ground like this, especially of the scale, because if I physically took to having the budget to build the physical infrastructure I need for the business model I have, you could never do it. So it's quite unique in that there's already a building there. It was sitting dormant, and the shape of it, the size of the rooms and everything, it all just kind of fits, and the layout. So I got very, very fortunate in that regard. But initially I had the vision and the concept that I did want to bring to life, but at that stage I didn't know how.
But it almost sounds to me like you knew what you wanted, you saw what you wanted, and you happened to be in the right place at the right time. I don't see that as luck. I just see that as focus, such clarity in your focus that you almost magnetically found your way to that. Talk to us about some of those skills of managing time. So watching this right now, we will have young people who are struggling with time management. They might also have this incredible idea to start their own business, but they're kind of thinking, I'm a student. How do I manage my time? How do I do this? What would you say are your number one tips as an entrepreneur?
This is an area that I also struggle with, and that's the reality. There's days I'm organized, and there's days where it's totally chaotic, and you find yourself doing one thing as you run out the door to get to training in time. So it does be challenging, and that's the reality of it. But it is an area that I'm getting some help in bringing structure to. I planning out my week and kind of having different segments of the week that is dedicated to like repetition tasks that I have to do every week. Some things like rotas for the cafe, ordering, some thinking time for like the overall strategy and direction of the business and where it needs to go. So it's important that I take myself away out of the environment and just go for a walk, something simple, go for a swim, things like that, where you have your own headspace and your thinking is taken elsewhere. And I also take myself away to other cafes that I see on social media just to get different ideas, see what they're doing well. And I really enjoy that too. So it's kind of bringing a structure to all them things, and setting time aside for different tasks that I know need done week to week. And then allowing time, as I say, for thinking outside the box and thinking of overall strategy and removing yourself from the business in order to move it forward,
I want to take you into the crowded market of what exists right now in terms of wellness. Take us into the uniqueness of your enterprise and how you ignore the disruption of competition and stay focused on your vision and stay driven on your uniqueness.
For me, it's quite simple what my USP is, and it's probably the fact that I have a number of wellness facilities in the one space. There's a lot of great, like in terms of the fitness end of things, there's maybe 15 to 20 great facilities within the Oma area, and that's within maybe 4 or 5 miles. They all have their own sort of style and uniqueness, but I think what my USP is, and it's genuinely just the fact that I have the social element, the fitness element, and the wellness element all within the one space and within the one roof, and that can all be booked on a central portal app, my own branded app, so you can book and use the facilities as you please, and then come out and enjoy a coffee and a smoothie and whatever with friends and family and that. So it's quite unique in that it ties all of these elements under one roof, and the location on that is like a destination now, as opposed to going to do one thing and then going elsewhere for something else. I've kind of created a one-stop shop destination for all things wellness.
That's amazing. So it's like your vision evolved when it came to life. And in meeting entrepreneurs, what I notice, the pattern or the trend that I'm seeing is they're flexible to their organization's growth, that organic growth. Would you say that this is a process that is a very conscious process for you when you're looking at your future growth? Or does this really happen organically and you need to be comfortable with the direction that the organization is growing into?
In my case, like the business, it's only 10 months old. So I suppose my development of the business is mostly organic. I had an initial vision, but very soon that comes to life, and then you're thinking, what's next and what am I adding or what am I changing? So mine's been quite organic. It was like some spark in my brain one day. I was walking past a bit of like empty space in the cafe, and I was like, that's dead space. What can I do with it? And then you just get thinking, and now I'm a couple of weeks away from adding like a natural organic ice cream bar to it. So it's an ethical ice cream which fits the brand, the overall brand and the umbrella. So I'm hoping to that in for probably June time, start of June, which will add to the business, add new footfall. And in recent weeks, there's been camps and different kids running about, and their mums and dads are walking out with a coffee and they're saying, let's go for ice cream. So that's kind of all happening now in the last few weeks, and it's solidified in my head that it is something that would be a good addition to the business. So that's the direction I'm taking the business now, in terms of adding that and using up the rest of the space. And then I have some other ideas as well, like longer term, but that's the short to mid-term one. So it happens quite organically.
In listening to you, I'm hearing a very, very creative entrepreneur. You can see, you described it as there was dead space and I want to fill it. Would you say that type of ability to see that creativity is something that a young person building their micro business would have to learn in a lecture hall, or is that something that comes to you quite naturally?
I think it comes naturally. It might be contradictory in a way. I'm a big believer in developing a lot of things like leadership and skill sets and different things like that. But I can't think of a time or a place or a person that has instilled creativity in me. I think it's just something, I don't know, something I've always just kind of had, I think. It's a tricky question, that, but I believe you can develop a lot of things, but this specific thing, I think I've always had something in me that I'm always looking for different ideas. So like I'm driving down a street and I see different units. I see an empty unit. I see other businesses. I check out the brand. I Google them. I'm like, what are they doing? I see empty units. It's like, that's a perfect unit for this. So I'm always kind of inclined to think that way. More so recently, in recent years, when I had business on my mind. So
I want to take you backwards because I'm very conscious of who's listening to this right now. And they're young people that are used to following a very linear path, doing what they're told to do and staying within those boundaries. As an entrepreneur, can you stay within those boundaries when you're talking about that creativity, or do you have to venture outside the box to be able to stay afloat, grow the business, and keep evolving organically as you described it?
What boundaries are you relating to?
So
Maria?
young people are used to being told, you need to do this. They're young people go to school. They're used to being told what the tasks are, what the aims are. But as an entrepreneur, there really are no tasks or aims set out for you. Entrepreneurs have to go with it, don't they? I mean, Richard, when you set your business out, did you have point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to do, or did you just have to jump in the deep end and find your way through?
No, it's very much find your way just organically. It could be reactive. Sometimes it's proactive, but it's very much figuring it out yourself. So you have an initial idea or a product or a model. Once you execute that, it's what's next. It's always continuously moving. There's no real destination with business or entrepreneurism. It's always moving and changing. So that's something you do need to think outside the box. Like I think the places and the business people that I have met or spoke to, they never really stand still. They're always thinking what's next. They're always looking to add or improve and thinking outside the box. And I think those that do that are the ones that succeed. So like I could go and read a number of books about how to improve my cafe, but I don't think that practically relates to what I need to do with my business or my situation. You can learn or pick up things, but to answer your question, you do need to think outside the box and think of your own scenario and what can be unique to that.
And I think as well, your experience with sport and your experience at study, the discipline of following certain requirements is important. And I think when we go back to your time management, you said that, that is an area that I'm still developing on myself. I think the discipline that you went through as being a sports player and in going to school, meeting time frames, following objectives. There is a need for that in a structure when you are building a business, but that need for creativity is also, it means that young people building micro businesses have to be comfortable not expecting to be told what to do. And I think this is a key element of being an entrepreneur or being a visionary. Let's talk a little bit about the sources of finance. So this is another tricky area for many entrepreneurs. It's how did you secure your startup funds? What is it that a young person considering a micro business has to really think about when they're considering their financing?
So this was a big barrier for me initially. So the overall business model, I timed it and phased it in that one. I started with a low level, so I started off with just an infrared sauna in one of the wee small rooms. And my idea, my vision at that time was that one would fund the next project within the overall business. So it started with an infrared sauna room, and then I added like a small recovery suite. So it saved initially for the infrared sauna from my job that I was in, a sales job. And then my plan was that each small project would fund the next, and then eventually grow it over time to opening the cafe and having the wider facility done. So as I done this, I left my sales job, and then national lockdown came, and I had only infrared sauna and the recovery suite opened at that stage. So I had left the job. I didn't have a viable business yet, and the whole lockdowns came. So financially, at that time, my whole plans were just totally shot, which made me think at the time, I was like, God, this will never get off the ground, or I'm totally at a dead end here. And then I was very fortunate. So I struggled for probably 6 to 8 months over the first lockdown. And then I got very fortunate with a new set of grants that had come out, localized restrictions grants that I qualified for. And that was probably phase 3 of grants. So the first 2 I wasn't qualifying for because I had no returns done. I wasn't like a fully established business, so I didn't qualify for any of them. Them set of grants then probably give me a good bit of support to get the rest of the project off the ground. And that was a big turning point for the business in terms of delivering the starting point. But I had to be creative within that because it wasn't a huge budget. So I give you an example of that. I went and sought 60 free pallets from a friend, and my whole seating plan in the cafe is made out of pallets. Got a good joiner, a fella I know locally. So I had to be creative within that to stay within budget and bring something to life that fitted the brand and fitted a very small budget for a startup. But I think the principle in that is you have an idea, you have a startup, you just have to go and seek out solutions of how to bring it to life. Because if an idea or a startup you have is there's someone else doing it, yours doesn't have to be like that or the exact same. Figure out a way of having your own twist on it, or doing it differently, or doing it within your means, because eventually that will become unique to you. And I think that's a good lesson for anyone.
I think that comes back to creativity again. So even in financing, you had to find a way to be creative. Would you say that creativity is sometimes that survival instinct that you have as an entrepreneur?
Think so. Like, creativity can be the result of survival, or like trying to survive. So sometimes you need to be backed into the corner to think outside the box or do something different, and that can force you, and then that all of a sudden will leapfrog you to a really good position. So I'd say most businesses, it's probably fair, that find themselves in that position and have to respond or react or pivot and change. So I suppose I was in a position where the business was quite healthy, and that I'm just thinking, how can I develop and add to it here so I maximize the space? But yeah, I had to change.
Brilliant. Now, you mentioned the word branding a couple of times, and I'm going to tap into that. Marketing is an area, in my experience of interviewing entrepreneurs, sometimes they wait till everything is kind of ready and they think of marketing right at the end. But branding in my perspective, comes right before you do anything. So you're building that business plan. Branding comes into it, whether you describe it or not. What is the branding for your enterprise, and how did you decide what that branding would look like and sound like? And what does branding mean to you as an entrepreneur? I know I asked you several questions, but jump in at any point.
So firstly, branding to me, I think it's hugely important. My style for branding would be, I like to force the consumer to think of what it is as opposed to saying it or giving it away. So like some businesses you could see, it's very simplistic. It's literally, it says or does what it says on the tin sort of thing. So like a coffee shop, or I could say anything really, really simple and to the point. But I like to create like an intrigue with the consumer and like provoke thinking with my branding. Albeit it's all related. So what I mean by that is my business, or it's based around wellness and nature. Initially my brand started off, I was going to call it The Pharmacy, spelled FHARMACY. Basically creating that thinking process of the contrast between pharmaceutical and the natural ways of becoming well. That was my line of thinking, and then just suppose I got some good advice and a bit of help with a graphic designer, and we arrived at Natur and Co. Nature without the E. So I think it leaves it more flexible as well if you want to add other elements of that brand or that business. So Natur and Co. Would suggest that there can be more added to the umbrella. But branding's hugely important. Hugely.
So what are the methods that you use for your marketing?
It's mainly all social media at the minute, and marketing is not a strong point of mine. It is an area that I would like to either hire in-house or outsource or get some sort of training or guidance on. I'm just doing the very, very basics of digital marketing. I am getting support of the website at the minute, which will be live hopefully in the next 6 weeks, which will be very good. And then I'll start looking into SEO and stuff like that. But I'm very much learning as I go on the marketing side of things. It's not my strength at all. I think my biggest marketing tool is just word of mouth. And I'm convinced that the business I've built to date is solely built on word of mouth. Some people will come in based on what they see on the digital side of things, but I think that the strongest foundation of the business and the repeat custom and the regulars and the loyal customers are all through word of mouth.
It sounds like it's very aligned with the mission of what you're doing in terms of wellness, social wellness, and bringing people. You described it as that space where anyone can relax, and that word of mouth almost sounds like it's living the value of what you're trying to demonstrate to your customers. Let's tap back into your academic journey. So I did say I'd come back to this conversation. Just as I know the students are going to be nearing to the end of their time with us, I want you to go back to, or I want to take you back to those days at university when you were considering, why am I here? What am I doing? I really want to start this cafe. I want to be out there. Your parents were telling you to keep going. And then suddenly you continue. And not only do you continue, you even pursue a master's degree. How important would you say now, in retrospect to where you are, how important would you say that education was for you today as an entrepreneur?
I think it's been hugely important, and not for the reasons that you might think. The main importance and probably the biggest thing that I took from my university days is the people that I met and the connections. A wise man once told me recently, there a few weeks ago, that your net worth is your network. And I think that's one massive thing that I've taken from my university and my studies, was a lot of great people throughout the country. that are very smart and doing really good things, but people that you have a relationship with and you'll have it for life. And I think a lot of people want to help others as well. So that's something I'm also good at, is asking for help and asking someone that's much smarter than me for guidance or support. So traditionally, I think we're all sort of pushed down the route of education. Get your degree, if you can, get your master's, stay within the road of tradition here. But I think for any young people, if you have an idea or something you're interested in or a passion for something, I think we live in a world now, there's so many alternatives to kind of developing yourself and building a skill set and allowing you to follow that or open a business or create something. I think there's other avenues to do that. And I think that's proven now as well. You see companies like Google, PwC, they're all recruiting people that haven't graduated, don't have a degree. They're recruiting based on character and principles and attitude, as opposed to what you have on a CV or a piece of paper. So I think that's going to open the floodgates now in the next 10, 15 years for young people to work on that side of themselves, as opposed to going the traditional route of education. I think if you have a good attitude, a good character, and a good work ethic, all the basic stuff, I think the sky's the limit for you, really, as opposed to going and doing a degree or a master's. So I don't think they should feel like they have to stay within that framework.
Love this conversation. Definitely many more conversations to be had on this topic. And I resonate with what you're saying. And I believe that young people should be looking at what they do post-secondary in terms of professional development. But I do believe, I am an advocate of higher education in terms of the value that it can bring to a young person, but you want to make sure that you're making those decisions very consciously. Richard, it has been an incredible conversation. I've had an incredible conversation with you. It's been a lot of fun to talk to you. I know that I want to bring this to a wrap and open it up to Q&A. So I'm just going to end the recording here by thanking you for being with me. Today, we spoke with Richard Donnelly, who is the founder of Natur & Co. And Natur & Co. is a fun and dynamic interactive space where anyone can go to relax, socialize, and improve their health and well-being. It welcomes everyone from passerbyers to athletes to class goers for catch-ups over coffee and infrared sauna and hot deskers who have important business meetings to take care of. The space was designed to bring people together who want to lead a healthier lifestyle, have social catch-ups over specialty coffee, a healthy juice, or improve their health and fitness to unwind from that hectic lifestyle of the world that we live in. Thank you for watching, everyone, and I will see you at the next Let's Talk Careers with Miss V.